thousands of students in the U.S. are applying for debt forgiveness involving their student loan debt after they say that their schools have defrauded them. Now, a lot of students don't know this, but back in 1994, the government did pass a law indicating that if you were defrauded in some way when getting your education and taking out these loans for that education, you could qualify for debt forgiveness. Now, understand that student loan debt is the only type of debt in this country that you cannot get rid of, even if you file for bankruptcy. However, this law that was passed in 1994 and that was completely underutilized until recently does allow you to at least apply and see if you can get debt forgiveness for these loans. Now, in the past 6 months, more than 7,500 borrowers owing $164 million have applied to have their student debt expunged under an obscure federal law that had been applied only in 3 instances before last year. So the law forgives debt for borrowers who prove that their schools used illegal tactics to recruit them, such as lying about their graduates' earnings. I love this story because A, it's something that wasn't publicized before, so a lot of students didn't know that they had this option. But I also love it because it does point a finger to something I've been ranting about for a very long time, and that's for-profit colleges. Almost every single student who applied for this debt forgiveness program went to a for-profit college. And those for-profit colleges rely very heavily, about 90 to 95% of their revenue comes from federal student loans. So what they do is they have the students come in, the recruiters do, and then they convince them, they try to convince them that, hey, this is the best opportunity for you. You know, you're sitting on your couch, you're just watching TV, you're not doing it anyways, might as well pick up the phone,
That's an
right?
exact commercial.
All right, and stop being a bum, go to our school, we have great opportunities for you. So then they take out these federal loans, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars if you're lucky, right? And they get a subpar education, and they're told through these recruiters that their graduates make X amount of money. They lie about that. But they also lie about job placement. So let's say you go to these schools for, let's say, a chef's program, and they'll say 90% of our students graduate and they're gainfully employed as chefs. Then you actually delve into the numbers and you find out that they get employed at McDonald's, and the school considers that gainful employment, right? That's not a chef. That's someone working at McDonald's, and you don't need a degree to work there, right? So that's what they mean when they say that they've been defrauded. Now, the U.S. Education Department has already agreed to cancel $28 million of that debt for 1,300 former students of Corinthian colleges, the for-profit chain that liquidated in bankruptcy last year. The department has indicated that many more will likely get forgiveness. Yo, American citizens who are watching this and you're thinking, why does this apply to me? Why do I care? That's your money, okay? That's your money that went to taxes, and then these students use that money for this education, okay? And that money just went to these so-called colleges to make them rich, okay? So if they expunge this loan or these loans from their records, in the end, the only person who gets screwed, or only people who get screwed, are American taxpayers, along with these students, right? And it just makes me so angry because this is another example of what deregulation does to this country. You deregulate, you know, these private companies that offer education, and they're able to do whatever they want. 95% of their revenue came in the form of federal student loans.
There's an all-out war going on right now, and it's against youth in this country, first of all, but it goes far beyond the practice of doing these student loan type deals. It goes down to educational providers and these deceptive practices that you mentioned, and really, in my opinion, like placing such a high value socially on these degrees that aren't worth very much to begin with. I mean, even if they aren't for-profit schools, even if they're state schools or what have you, there's no guarantee of getting a job. And I think that this is one of the biggest issues facing politically, socially, facing all of us, especially young people. I find myself in student loan debt. I'm angry about it. I'd love to sue. I mean, are you kidding? And I just think that Congress is complicit. The federal government is definitely complicit because they're the ones handing out the loans. So it's It's a mess, Anna.
It is. I know it's a
there's
mess.
a war going
I've known
on.
about this mess for a long time, and it didn't get much media attention until John Oliver did a piece on it. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh man, these for-profit colleges, they seem really bad. Yeah, they're terrible. And for anyone who's wondering what the difference is of for-profit colleges and traditional institutions, there are state schools, which are considered public schools, obviously. There are private universities like USC. And any type of profit that those schools make goes back to their trust, right? It goes back into the school. It's used for the school. With for-profit colleges, it's very different. They have a board of investors. And so the whole point of the institution is to turn a profit to make the investors and the owners wealthy. It's not about education. It's about profit. And once you create that type of profit motive, education is not really the end game. It's not the goal. It's all about money. And that's exactly what happened to these students. They were lied to, they were exploited, they were convinced to take out these loans, and in the end, they have very little to show for it.
What is the answer to this? Besides don't go.
The answer to this is robust regulation. And I know conservative heads explode, but that's what you need to do. When you're toying with taxpayer money, right, and when you are convinced that you're a fiscal conservative, then actually practice what you preach and ensure that taxpayer money isn't going toward institutions that are unaccredited, that are lying to their students through their recruiting techniques. You have to have a government that protects the people. But right now, we don't have that. We have a government that protects private industry. And that's the issue. At least that's the issue that I see here. President Barack Obama wanted to pass laws pertaining to for-profit colleges. They were known as gainful employment laws. And he first came at them with very, very aggressive laws to basically prove, hey, X amount of students get gainfully employed once they graduate from our institutions.
Real numbers.
Real numbers. And then after he met with some of the lobbyists involved in these for-profit colleges, he scaled back a little bit, and that really frustrated me. And so now, fast forward to a few years later, we're dealing with this issue where students have tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt from a school that doesn't even exist anymore.